One of the biggest risks is not doing anything. And if you're not starting down that path, you're going to end up as the next Blockbuster.
There is a huge demand and an increasing demand for podcasts.
Great organizations have that internal alignment. Making sure that you remember that your greatest resource is your people.
I would not recommend spending a single dollar on marketing without aligned priorities across functions.
A human who knows how to leverage AI in the right direction can get a lot more done.
If you can reduce the time between a concept and the go-to-market date, you increase your revenue.
Step one is to build your message. Step two is have a good message, and that's what we try to help with.
I agree 100%.
The future of digital is built by the teams who know how to move fast and constantly stay aligned.
In this episode, Peter Shwets was focused on bad habits. And Peter's biggest insight was that 70% of your marketing effort should be internal to ensure your workforce understand the company's value proposition and how it evolves over time, because in most organizations of a certain size, many clients-facing individuals do not have a clear view of what their company's value prop is all about.
I think that's a very, very important observation. Organizations need to understand how their funnel is led when it comes to business and how they interact with their client. So many times, an organization thinks, I need to be at this conference. I need to be at, this trade show, this pipeline exhibition. But they, from a practical standpoint, they could be very technician led from a sales process standpoint. They can be very, on the site, one-to-one individual led when it comes to selling. So yeah, you can send these messages externally. But when the people are in front of the decision makers and the company's client space, and they're not aligned with what we need to do now, what we need to do in 6 months, what new technologies, maybe how we're refactoring the business to be maybe more environmentally focused, and they're not sending that message consistently, the client can also be very confused. Typically at the higher level, supply chain, corporate, they see the branding that happens at the trade shows online. But then when the message and the actual connection happens on site in person, there's two different things that are being said. So that internal marketing, making sure, an individual I worked with in my past, he always had this great term, singing from the same sheet of music. Great organizations have that internal alignment. Making sure that you remember that your greatest resource is your people, and ensuring your people understand, okay, this is how we're going to talk. This is what we're going to promote, how we perceive the value of our organization, what value that delivers to our clients. That's in some cases more important. And maybe you should be spending 70% of your marketing efforts on that internal campaign for a given phase of technology versus, 70% externally. That can deliver the biggest result.
In this episode with Guillaume Jouvencel, we talked about innovation in marketing and why podcasting in B2B is important. Guillaume reframed podcasting ROI by arguing that even with 0 downloads, hosting 52 conversations with high-level decision makers per year is an ABM strategy in disguise. And each episode is a content development machine, generating blogs, YouTube, videos, social posts, and a lot more, making content development efficient.
So in 2025, there are over 600 million blogs worldwide. This is the AI excerpt from Google themselves, making up 31.6%, so about a third, of the 1.9 billion total websites. And some of those websites also have blog sections. It's just not a blog mainly, right? So the number of blogs out there is huge, rightfully so, because it's been around for 25 years now, and lots of people read articles. Well, lots of people used to read articles. There are 4 million podcasts in the world. And yet, since 2023, and we can put the link towards the stats in the show notes of the episode, Arnaud, podcasts are more researched than blogs. And the source is Google Trends. You can literally go and check as well, podcasts versus blogs. In January, so YouTube just released the stats, in January 2025, 1 billion podcast listeners in a month, consume podcasts on YouTube. And 400 million played it on a TV set. That's worldwide. But what I'm trying to say is, there is a huge demand and an increasing demand for podcasts, yet there are barely any podcasts out there in comparison to the number of blogs. So that's why I think there is a huge momentum to be caught here by starting a podcast and leveraging the podcast into blog articles as well. And the other thing that I find interesting, Arnaud, is more and more, Google is trying to make money, rightfully so. And what we've noticed, because we used to do podcasts for backlinking, small parenthesis, but the high intent searches are more and more distributed to the paid search, right? So it's very harder to rank for high intent purchases, which are the ones that eventually you want to rank for in SEO. Now, for not high intent, but like more discoverability and research purposes, SEO is still great. But there is this increasing amount of podcast searches versus blog searches. At the same time, the few blog searches are getting in competition against PPC. And so all this makes up for the fact that between the way people consume content, between the searches for podcasts versus blogs, and the competition there is in the blog versus PPC, always leads to Rome. I'm not sure of the expression in English, but it seems that podcast is a fair choice compared to blog that you can also leverage thanks to it.
With Prajwal from Business Brains, I am addressing ABM. Prajwal made it clear that ABM is a go-to-market model, not a tech stack, and true success comes from deep research like understanding the CEO's 3-year priorities or knowing which company is completing M&A in the last 6 months before you even send an email.
I think idiom's just a pretty hyped terminology in the last 5-7 years, if I may say. But ABM has always been a way of doing things. For example, if they're among so many companies that any sales or marketing team is going to go after, if there are 5 that are going to give you huge revenue, it's obvious that you will pay special attention and focus to win those 5, won't you? Obviously. So now, once you take that into, once you give many technologies and tools of personalization and tracking and so on and so forth from a technology standpoint, and gives you the ability to really be account-based, right? And then also, once we see the role of chief growth officer or chief revenue officer, who are trying to make sure that the revenue team or marketing and sales teams come together and they are going to be measured by a common metric or so on and so forth, then you are going to try to sell being very, very account focused or account based, and that is what account based marketing is, right? Technology is going to enable you in that process, but it is a way of doing things.
So by the way of doing things, do you think it's a strategy, it's a tactic, or it's more of a culture?
I will definitely not define it as tactic, right? It is definitely a way of doing, or it would be more of a model of going to market when it comes to going after those accounts that matter. And should you, and you would like to win, that's going to have the most significant revenue or significant impact on the numbers now or at some time in future. So it's definitely a combination of culture and strategy. It's more strategic, I would say, than just a tactic.
Peter Lyall is one of the best brand experts I know. In his research, he showed that rebrands must tie to a business imperative like an M&A or addressing a new market. And one of the critical mistakes companies make is announcing the rebrand externally before communicating it internally, which destroys internal buy-in and dooms execution. How can teams, connect their rebrand to specific, concrete outcomes? And do you see those organizations actually measure the outcome of a rebrand?
I have seen one or two measure it, but not in the things that you might consider the main metrics. Brand awareness, no, but in terms of staff satisfaction, that's been the most interesting one, actually, what it has done. And in B2B marketing, as you well know, organizations of this scale often have far more members of staff than they do customers. So it is important, and I've seen measurements done in terms of success factors and outcomes. of course, it depends an awful lot on what you were planning to do in the first place. If it was, hey, we just need to change the logo a bit because I don't like blue anymore, and I'd like red. Okay, fine. You don't need to measure that. You just need to say, well, the boss is now happy, and there you go. It's done.
That's an element of measurement. Happiness of the boss. I mean,
yes, happiness as the boss is pretty important. But on the other hand, if you had some very specific things, referring back to some of those drivers, different investors, different leadership team, different markets, you can lay down some criteria at the start of the project and say, hey, do people in, I don't know, Malaysia now know who we are? That's pretty straightforward, and you can find that out. I think where there's sometimes things become unstuck is measurement is related to outputs. Did we get 90% of the signage up in all the global locations by the 1st of September? Probably does, but does it matter as much as or more than did we create awareness with the stakeholders that we were trying to do? So I have often been in situations where, despite asking, the client is loath to actually put some real success criteria against a project.
Nick Caruso, founder of KnowledgeNet, one of the core technology I use daily for sales and business development, shares a clear warning. Doing nothing with AI is no longer an option. He explained how AI enables hyper-personalization at scale, allowing SDRs to multiply their productivity 10x and focus on human connection instead of manual research.
One of the biggest risks is not doing anything. So that's a crazy statement. I know there's, and I'm going to go into the actual risks, but the biggest risk is not doing anything. And if you're not starting down that path, you're going to end up as the next Blockbuster. You're going to go out of business. Right. Imagine I remember back in the start of the internet days, I'm sure, Arnaud, you're the same. Imagine if a company did not embrace the internet, right? Did not put a website out, did not embrace e-commerce, did not embrace communicating to their customer base over the internet. So that would be unimaginable to us today. There's no way you could run a business without embracing the internet. And companies need to be really thinking about that from AI, because AI will be more transformative to the world economy than the internet was. And you know how absolutely fun, incredible the internet has been. Now, the good news is that you can take a slow path, but you have to get started. Working with an agency, like we're working together, the KnowledgeNet HEX Group team, us as an agency can provide a lot of help during that path. Some of the obstacles you need to be very careful of, because there are a lot of traps along the way, is, to your point, not having a plan, right? Just just getting some tool out there, AI tool, is not a plan. It's a tool. That's not a plan. A plan is a concerted strategy that says, how are we going to use AI? And we like to start with building top of funnel. Some of the biggest gaps in AI in general that maybe your audience has heard about are things like, and I'll go back to the top of funnel, but it's probably like hallucination, right? You probably are. Now, are you familiar with like lawyers that have gotten into trouble because of hallucinations?
Yes. No, I've read a little bit about it, and that's crazy.
So lawyers have gotten into a tremendous amount of trouble using AI because they're lazy, and that they're just having AI do all the work. AI is a great assistant, not necessarily a replacement for a human in some cases, but they're going in front of judges and citing cases that don't even exist, that the AI hallucinated, right? So hallucination is a big issue. Privacy is a big issue. So this was a big issue with Microsoft Copilot. We're rolling out Copilot, and all of a sudden people could see the CEO's compensation plan. Privacy is a big part of it. So a well-structured and thought-through rollout process. Starting with a top of funnel is a great first step. And that is helping your SDRs, your BDRs, automate that process of finding contacts, reaching out to those contacts. That's a great first step. Website retraffic, website visitors. So on the marketing side, capturing website leads is a great thing that you've probably been doing for 20 years, Arnaud, right? But when those leads come in, where do those leads normally go for a lot of your clients, Arnaud, today? They probably go into some inbox or some workflow for a human to triage.
In the second episode, Tackling AI, Marco Luciano's insight was that we need to treat AI like an extra team member, by budgeting one person's annual salary toward AI solution that boost your existing team's productivity while focusing on answer engine optimization instead of just traditional SEO. Discuss a little bit ChatGPT versus Google and kind of this whole evolution of what was and may not be longer, be called SEO, but that was one of the kind of the tactic that was really implemented across all industries in search engine optimization and how to do it. And that's been evolving almost weekly for the past, I don't know how many years, but today, with AI, it's really completely transforming. And I wanted you to kind of give our audience a little bit of a background and what is changing and how they should address kind of getting found on the World Wide Web today.
We're coming out of a week where Google released a lot of new products and features, and Microsoft pushed a lot of Copilot features out. So we can expect that every big platform, every big technology will include their own AI ecosystem. And that means for many use cases, people might not need to go to a specific website and search for a ranked list of results, as I said before. But I think it's still important to be found, and then having AI is both helpful and harmful in this case, because everyone will do mediocre content. So it will be not so easy to stand out in a positive way, and you must do a lot just to keep the same level as everyone else. And through a different set of methodologies, you can make sure that you still have some competitive edge. And I think the main concept that you should keep in mind for that is the user intent. So keeping a very good understanding of what your user base has as context and knowledge before coming to your page and what their main goal might be. That is driving the content and UX definition, I would say. And that's then no big difference if someone is using ChatGPT and searching a whole sentence compared to typing 2 keywords into Google search.
This episode with Michel Privé is all about sales and marketing alignment. Michel made a point that companies are like 4-cylinders engine, where brand marketing, sales, and customer service must fire in sync. And by using the 80-20 rule to fire unprofitable clients and focus on top performers, his team tripled EBITDA without increasing the budget.
The customer service were servicing their clients very, very well. They didn't have to worry about where the orders is here, like a late shipment or anything like this. So in other words, for sales, it was opening up a full bandwidth of time to improve their relationship at their customers, to do improvement for putting the business on contract, getting blanket orders, work with our engineering team and their customers' engineering team. We fully raised up our how can I say that, footprint at the customer. And the customers, by the way, they loved it so much that we were getting most of their business. It's not all their business. Pricing was not an issue anymore. It was not in the discussion anymore.
And did you have any KPIs around referrals coming from that really good customer experience?
Yes, that's right. So, it's one, we had a KPIs, and in fact, there was out of the bonus plans for each of the members, it was that, you had to ask 4 or 5 referrals, depending, in the companies. So by servicing our customers well, by being on the customers all the time, in fact, we had a program. The program was an internal program, not an external program, but an internal program to encourage our customer service, our sales team, even marketing, to everyone, in fact, in the organization, to ask for referrals. And warm referrals, we had everyone trained on the front side of the business, including our distributors, as a matter of fact, trained to ask for referrals. And that program's brought in very, very good warm leads. And marketing was helping us dramatically, in fact, to prepare materials for us, the sales guys, to trigger that referral program.
With Jenny Salinas, we cover marketing in a startup environment. Jenny's advice was to adopt the startup hustle by getting closer to the product and becoming the customer yourself, while building a strong relationship with finance, because understanding the P&L is the only way to protect your marketing budget when priorities shift.
I would not recommend spending a single dollar on marketing without aligned priorities across functions, because I can think of a million times where we were off and running with our plans. We had a start, middle, and end to our marketing plans that everybody needed to see and knew we had, and they would fail because priorities changed and we were not aligned. So I think that's critical. And then the last one that comes to mind for me, and it's culture related, and it's a learning and a lesson from my big firm experience, because, they go through a lot of M&A. You hear a lot about how important culture is. There's all kinds of insights out there on it, so I'm not going to beat that up. But both S&P and IHS were very active in M&A driven growth, right? That's no secret. So during transformations or integrations, culture matters big time. I think I'm talking about it because it gets acknowledged, but I don't think it is well practiced. And I have just seen things struggle without a true dedicated effort around that, especially when it's M&A related. You really want to take care of your teams. You want to build resilient teams, and you want to keep them motivated through things like that. And I would say I had a good experience, and I had leaders who were committed to it. But that was a big lesson, is how important that is during M&A.
Frederik's hybrid model pairs a fractional CMO with a specialized agency to deliver measurable returns in 60 to 90 days. Focusing on EBITDA engineering, where building a trusted brand allows companies to command premium pricing and increase valuation at exit.
I see that you can leave the literature, the articles about private equity 3.0. There's a lot to it, but one of the components is to get marketing earlier involved. Typically, just to set the stage, after a private equity acquisition, the first focus is really on operational efficiency, financial restructuring. Then the attention moves to sales effectiveness, sales acceleration, maybe then working with engineering, and finally marketing. Now, what are people recognizing, or the industry is recognizing, that these are phenomenal value-added changes that are happening at the company. However, customers, the market, is still unaware. And we're also losing time by not building up the demand gen capabilities in parallel. So now seeing that marketing is indeed that when you have all the goods, marketing is that growth multiplier on one hand, and also so enables the company to grow, but also is a big factor in de-risking the thesis of M&A, to make sure that we have a better understanding of our customers, we have a stronger ICP defined, the narrative is really vetted and resonates with our audience. So no time to waste. Why would you, by getting marketing involved? The next step is then to have marketing also involved in the due diligence. So even before the M&A, to already have mapped out where are the gaps, the good stuff, and any fractional CMO coming in doesn't have to waste even a week to get going.
And so what are for you, the common pitfalls post-acquisition?
I wish there was a standard list. There isn't, but I think one of the things is that we just talked about is in due diligence, spend some time also on highlighting your go-to-market strategy, your demand gen engine, how is that working? And if you then double click on that, you typically see that from a marketing perspective, that the OKRs, the objectives, the key results, the metrics, the objectives are not tied as strong as they could to the overall business strategy, the business objectives. So as a result, there's less focus within marketing. We don't know what good looks like. There are a lot of activities ongoing, but there is little focus. So that's one thing. And then you quickly stumble into the lack of data clarity, taxonomy. So if you look at the funnel, are we aligned on the funnel metrics and definitions? If you cannot measure it, if you don't have healthy or hygiene of your data, you probably will not be able to steer. So that's a big number 2. And then number 3, which you quickly found out, is that the messaging tends to be somewhat dull. It's not bad, but if you want to stand out from competition, you need to bring something extra. You need to show that you really understand your customer unmet needs to another level of detail, and not only for the buying person, but probably also that committee of stakeholders that he is talking to when he's making this acquisition.
In this episode, my friend Michael Halper from SalesCryptor makes an analogy between sales messaging and how good politicians communicate, focusing on the outcome.
I think most people, if they follow politics at all, at least from if they have witnessed political speeches at all, you can picture this, which is politicians use a message, and their message is not what school I went to and what my experience is. That would be the product details, because the politician is the product. So a product message for a politician would be, these are my credentials. But they don't go out there and give a speech about their credentials. They go out there and talk about the people that they're trying to get votes from. So their message will be, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to decrease this for you. I'm going to make this better for you. And that's the message. So when they start a campaign, usually they have the message as the foundation, and that message will then drive what they say in all the different formats that they communicate. So when they give a speech, what they say in the speech is pulled from the message. When they go and shake hands, or when they do interviews with the media, they will repeat the message. When they send emails, it's pulled from the message. So that's the exact same thing that salespeople and sales departments should be doing. They should create the message, and then everything is driven from the message. And by the way, that makes selling a lot easier, because if you have that foundation of this is our message. And by the way, converting that back to a product, it's about what we're going to do for the customer that purchases from us. We're going to improve this. We're going to decrease that. It's the exact same thing as a politician. So you can look at a political message or a political campaign and see that, well, that's how we should be organizing how we communicate as a salesperson. And then that's just the using the concept of that analogy right there just can help you to understand the concept of embracing a messaging. And then you could go to the next level to think about what successful politicians have done that have built up a following and motivated people to go out there and vote for them. And some of those campaigns typically look like connecting with people on the pain points they have, focusing on the pain that they're experiencing, the problems they're concerned about, and maybe communicating solutions for those. I mean, without getting into politics in too much detail, but step 1 is to build your message. Step 2 is have a good message, and that's what we try to help with.
Nomah Zia is an expert in digital transformation. One of the biggest myths in digital transformation is that impact comes from long roadmaps. In this clip, we talk about why velocity beats vision, how clarity and alignment remove friction, and why digital leaders who own execution, not just strategy, are the ones who win in an AI-driven world.
I think it's the speed by which an organization can go from an idea to an impact. It's not in 24 months roadmap. It's like deliver and learn from it and then build upon it. And that only happens when you have clarity of what you're going to do. You have alignment of the teams, how you're going to do that. And the leaders are working on removing the friction. So momentum, to me, in digital is everything. So if my team's going to take 6 weeks just to test a landing page, sometimes you just lose relevance by that time. And that means losing leads, right? So that's why you need sometimes subject matter experts from outside that can help you test in real time, learn fast, and move ahead of what the competitor or the market shifts are. I think that's why velocity matters. And sometimes you need external support if the internal has not been used to that culture.
And so, what's your kind of single best piece of advice for digital leaders today?
Single. There are quite a few, but
Well,
I think
let's start with one.
just start with one. I'm going to say, to me, what's important is I just don't like to chase transformation. I like to own the execution, if that makes sense. Because strategy is important. But like I said, it's the most important thing is the speed, the clarity, and the alignment. And that's what can move the needle really fast in these AI times, right? I think today we just, as a digital leader, it's not about having the vision. It's also having that operational discipline that can I make complexity simple to my team? And can I allow them to have that space where they can execute with efficiency and then be able to connect that across the board with all cross collaborations team? It's a win-win on both sides. So when I talk to my teams, I say, to me, the future of digital is built by the teams who know how to move fast and constantly stay aligned.
Usman Khalid, a good partner of mine and MarTech expert, made it simple. AI is useless without good data. And you need a structured golden record through product information management. Because if your data is messy, AI will just hallucinate and distribute errors faster across every channel.
If you want to accelerate your revenue in terms of practically every different product category, and we have case studies like Zara in terms of fashion, Toyota in terms of design to actual production. So basically, if you can reduce the time between a concept of the product and the go-to-market date, you increase your revenue. We are in fast fashion, fast everything. We want to have the newest gadget out there. So this is what the consumer behavior is. So definitely from a product R&D perspective, so from a product concept to a product ready for market, that time is going to decrease. So once that decreases, your organization is now well suited to increase the revenues. When it comes to overall just the efficiency, so just imagine you are a marketing manager and you already know what R&D is doing and what are the next products coming in. And typically in small companies, that's a pantry conversation. But for larger organization, the marketing managers continuously are aggravated by the fact that the management just came to them and told, we are launching this product next week. Let's get ready. And there was like 1 week or 3 weeks or 6 weeks is just not good enough. So in terms of if you implement then, the first KPI that you should focus on should be time to market, from concept to the market. The second thing should come in terms of cohesion of work, and that would increase the efficiency of work as well. It would also, in the end, help you optimize the cost if you start bringing in all the agentic workflows as well as the AI bits and pieces to generate some of the graphics or the content for these products.